divider. Felt like it took an eternity for him to get there. Santa and Lotus followed, timid and nervous as a pair of children. Eventually, they reached the divider. They looked at one another and nodded slowly. Junpei put his hands on the divider and peered around the corner. For a moment, he forgot to breathe. He felt his heart collapse in his chest like an empty cigarette carton, and time froze. He knew in that instant that he would take the image before him to the grave. What was left of the body sat in a sea of blood. Chunks of flesh, torn from the body, sat in the blood like tiny islands in a great red sea. A vast, ragged hole had been torn in the torso, and what remained of his intestines spilled out like fresh spaghetti. Smaller chunks of meat had splattered against the wall and become stuck there as they dried. Globules of yellowish fat had left trails like tiny slugs as gravity pulled them down the wall, even as they dried to it. I'm sorry, trying my best to make it like super intense, but at the same time, like my tongue gets twisted. I'm sorry if this is causing like you guys to get nauseous or something. Just like I said. Santa's voice was strained. Junpei suspected he was holding down some vomit of his own. Just like the 9th man. The detonator in his bracelet set off the bomb in his gut. It looked as though the explosion had been quite powerful. His legs were bent in an odd, unnatural way, and his left arm had split open, exposing the painfully white bone of his ulna. His bracelet lay next to him. It seemed to have hit the wall hard enough to have shattered the display, which lay on the ground in pieces. Half of his head had simply collapsed. The blood coating almost made it look like raw pizza dough covered in tomato sauce. His clothes, too, were covered in blood. The burgundy tie, the white shirt, the jacket with the yellow piping, and the gray slacks. They were all familiar to Junpei. No mistake about that. It's Snake. Lotus's voice was unnaturally deep and strained, and Junpei heard it catch in her throat. Well, that was that, guys. A squeal of tortured metal made Junpei's teeth curl. It sounded like the noise was a ghost. Sounded like the noise a ghost would make. No matter how many times he heard it, he never got used to it. Every time it put him on edge. It didn't help that there was a girl nearby who looked far more like a ghost than a living human should. It was Clover. She sat on the edge of the bed, her head drooping listlessly into her chest. Her eyes were blank and stared across the room of nothing. Her breathing was slow and mechanical. Sorry, I'm trying to fix my chair because I need to have something to rest my back because it's starting to hurt a bit. Aside from the rise and fall of her chest, she didn't move. Junpei felt as even a nudge might cause her to shatter into 1,000 pieces. Snake was probably murdered. Chances are he was killed the same way the 9th man was. 7 lowered his voice, hearing an effort to keep Clover from hearing what he had said. There were 4 other people in the room with Junpei and 7. Santa, June, and Lotus. 7 looked at each one of them in turn and continued. It's pretty straightforward. Not that hard to figure out how they did it. First, the killers got Snake to authenticate the red to open door 3. Then they shoved him into it alone, and waited 9 seconds for the door to shut. Once the door shut, it was over for Snake, but he didn't give up. He probably knew it wouldn't do him any good, but he probably ran into the shower room looking for the dead. It was a small chance, but it wasn't like he had anything to lose. Unfortunately, it didn't work. The detonator only deactivated if everybody who authenticated when they went in uses the dead. And then 81 seconds after he was shoved in, that happened. I see. So that's what you meant by killers, huh? You need at least 3 people to open one of the numbered doors, including Snake. It wouldn't open for Snake and a single killer. Exactly. That meant we're looking at multiple perps here. Junpei crossed his arms and grunted. Well, just in case, I want to make sure. Let's say you're right. When do you think Snake was killed? When we all split up looking for the parts for the Reds, I think. Right after that was when we noticed he was gone. Then that means none of us have alibis. We were all off searching the rooms we'd been assigned, looking for those parts. Yeah, that means anybody could be the killer. Wait a minute. What are you talking about? June seemed shocked. How can you say one of us is a killer so casually? Well, not just one of us. If I'm right, then at least 2 of us are murderers. Why don't you calm down a bit, Seven? What are you going to gain by being so suspicious? That's what Zero wants you. You know? What Zero wants? Exactly. This game was set up by Zero, wasn't it? Any game has a winner and a loser. Whoever makes it through door 9 is a winner. Those who don't are losers. Zero's trying to make us fight against one another for that victory. He went through a numbered door. He disappeared early on and only found him through an unnumbered door. Well, he was found in the 3 door. They left the things open so that they could go through without having to go through the 3 door, without having to go through and authenticate. That's basically what happened. So he's trying to make us fight against one another for that victory. Then you're saying Zero's trying to split us up by making us fight each other? Yes. That is why we can't let ourselves fall prey to suspicion. We have to trust one another, form a strong bond of friendship. Otherwise, we'll end up ensnared by Zero's manipulations. Then, does that mean the person who killed Snake? Yes, almost certainly Zero himself. If there's anyone we should doubt, it should be Zero. He masterminded this game and kidnapped all of us. Doesn't it seem reasonable that he would kill Santa as well? Snake, not Santa. I'd rather Santa gone than Snake, but whatever. Junpei hadn't really considered that. If Zero had killed Snake, then Zero was on the ship with them. Was Zero still on the ship with them? Okay, so is Zero still on the ship with them? What did we say in the last drop all? Did we say someone other than Zero? I think we said someone other than Zero. I'm actually gonna be right back. I need to stretch my back and go use the toilet. But put 1 or 2 if you want to vote for 1 or vote for 2, and I'll be back. Yay! You guys seriously tied again? As some of you know, we're gonna come back. So either way, you know, we can return to this and ask for the rest of the explanation or the other answer. So let's go with of course. Fine, Hector, I'll go with Junpei wasn't sure then. He wasn't sure. Hey, I'm just wondering one thing. And what's that? How can you be so sure that Zero's on the ship? Ace's eyebrows should shut up. Really, Junpei? I confess, I'm a little disappointed. Usually you're rather sharp. Your Swiss is short. Fine, Ben! Fine! Isn't it obvious? Obvious? How so? This ship. Huh? Zero said this ship several times when he addressed us. I am Zero, the captain of this ship. Purpose of the game is simple. Leave this ship alive. As you have no doubt surmised, this ship has begun to sink. If he weren't here, he wouldn't say this ship, would he? He'd be saying something like that ship, or the ship. Oh. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. His explanation made perfect sense. Junpei felt a little foolish that he hadn't seen it himself. Still, he was left with a question, and it was one of no small importance. If Zero's on the ship, where is he? Suddenly, everyone went very quiet. The silence was cold and clammy, and Junpei could feel it crawling across his back and around his throat. Again, he heard the ghosting, moaning noise. Moments later, a person who looked more like a ghost than human appeared. It was Clover. He looked at the door as she spoke, and her voice at the floor. She looked at the floor as she spoke, and her voice was cold, monotone. I think Zero is one of us. Every human body in the room froze, and the only sound was the muffled rustling of breath. I started from face to face. One of those faces was the face of their jailer. But who? Junpei said, one or two, guys. I'll let you guys decide again. It's all up to you guys. It's all up to you. What is the decision? What shall we do? What shall we say? Well then, unanimously, one wins. That's possible. Huh? Like Clover said, Zero might be one of us. What are you saying, Jumpy? Didn't you hear what Ace said? Exactly. I said we shouldn't suspect one another for no reason. No reason? It's got a great reason. And what's that? The bracelets. He held out his left arm. Why are the bombs in our bodies connected to the bracelets? You're all thinking Zero's hiding somewhere watching us, right? If he's doing that, then he could just detonate the bombs by remote control if someone did something they weren't supposed to. It would be a lot more precise and a lot easier. But if that's the case, then why is the bomb